So this is what I'm going to call a killer move. Most of the golfers that I've been teaching last week have just all been doing this move as well. And this movement is going to cause you to hit slices, fades, pulls, fats, thins. It's not really one that you should be trying to do. So come on, let's go and have a look at it and see if we can fix it for you. What is this move and what is it why is it causing you a lot of trouble? All right, and it's really important that you have an understanding of this. All right, and it really comes down to how our body is turning, and I'm seeing a lot of golfers do this, and especially their hips. All right, and what they're not focusing on is getting them to move backwards or move around, if you want to say rotate. And what they're ending up doing is they're actually having a tendency to slide over with the hips. So this right hip is tending to slide out. Now if I drew a line on myself here, you'll see that as I swing back, we're tending to see that this right hip is sliding to the right hand side as opposed to turning, if you want to call it that, or pushing backwards. All right, and that causes really bad things to happen in the golf swing. Well, what does it cause? All right, and one of the biggest things that I see it causes, well, it has done this week with my pupils, is when they're doing this slide back or this movement of bumping the hip to the right hand side, this actually under rotates their shoulders somewhat in the backswing. All right, and they get very short in the turn, and the club ends up being on a very steep path. So they go back, the club head stays outside the hands, which they're thinking is probably a good move. One of the pupils said to me he's trying to keep the club head going, keep the hands inside the club head, and this actually caused him to do a little bit of this movement. It sort of made him slide into the shot. Another one said they felt like they needed to transfer their weight to the right hand side, so they were trying to push out here. Actually, ironically for that person, when they were pushing the hip this way, it made their weight go back to the left hand side, because what they were doing, they were feeling pressure go into the ground in the right foot, and they felt like they were putting the weight into their right side. All right, and so what you'll generally see from a golfer that has a tendency to slide to the right hand side this way, it tilts their body in the wrong direction and their shoulders underturn, and they get themselves into this position here. All right, so the hips have not really hardly turned at all, and all I'm going to do from here really when I start the downswing is turn straight away. I'm going to come across the ball and slice it or fat it, thin it, and one of the other things you'll lose is quite a lot of distance as well. All right, so it's one of the things that I see a lot of golfers tend to do. They tend to slide out here and through this way, and they come across the ball and they don't really get a good hit on the ball at all. All right, so that's really one of the things that I see. It's worse with the driver, because when I make that movement here with the driver, all right, don't worry, I won't hit it off the deck, I'm not that good. All right, but when I see golfers make that movement with the driver, the reason why it's worse is because they try to hit it harder for one, which makes them come across even more, and they'll end up skying it, hitting off the toe, off the heel, and also because it's got less loft on the face, they eventually ended up fading it or slicing it more. All right, so that's why they tend to struggle more with the driver. Golfers who tend to do that hip slide, as in my experience, would tend to stick with a 3-wood or a hybrid off the tee and say to me, oh, don't even bother with the driver. Reason why you also hit it fat and heavy is if I make that swing where I push out to the side here like this and get an underturn, what they tend to do as well from here, because I said to you earlier about that person who felt like their weight moved to the right hand side, they have a tendency from here then to there's an old saying, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. All right, so it's quite a famous one. All right, and what you'll find from here, because my hips slide this way, my actual hips will then tend to slide the other way, and this actually changes my spine tilt. All right, so what I mean by that is if my hips go this way, my shoulders will tend to turn and tilt this way, which creates what we call a fade bias action. All right, and if my hips, so once I go this way, I'm then going to go that way. All right, so I'm then going to rock backwards. So that's what we see a lot of golfers do. They tend to go out to the right, get caught here, slide to the left. This then rocks the shoulders underneath themselves. They're then going to bury the club into the ground early, or they're going to salvage it, and they're going to then thin the ball up the fairway as well. So very important that we get the hips moving correctly. All right, so that's a real short blast of what I'm seeing and what I've been seeing just the last week with a lot of my customers on Skillist. who's sending me videos, I'm seeing a lot of poor body motions and bit of movements of the hips in sliding actions, all right? Yeah, the hips do have a lateral movement, but not the way in which you think, all right? So that's really what I want to be working on with you guys today. What did I actually get my clients to do this week that's actually helped them out immensely with this issue of this hip slide, all right? Well, it was a few simple, subtle changes that I made to them and gave them some tips and drills to do. And it was quite amazing how quickly they picked them up, because they've sent me the after videos as well. And the first thing that we did was we made just a couple of changes just to the address position, all right? Now, one of the things that I changed was what we call foot flare, all right? So one of the things that I saw there was a foot flare is the angle that we want the feet to be at, all right? And all right, some body shapes don't allow it to be certain ways, and that's down to screening and so on and so forth. But what we were finding they were having their feet a bit too square, okay, a bit too straight on. All right, and this tends to lock the knees in. It tends to lock everything in. Really, it turns the upper bones here inwards and turns the knees inwards, sorry, and that causes you to lock yourself in, and you tend to then create a sway because it locks the knees in, because they think they need to keep the knees still, and they end up going this way. So what we're going to ask them to do was literally just turn the toes out. Now, I told them to pretend there was a clock facing in front. We've got 12 o'clock here, I've got 1 o'clock, and I've got 11 o'clock. And just turn my feet out so that my right foot was pointing to 1 o'clock and my left foot was pointing to 11 o'clock, all right? So they had a slight turn out. This opens the knees out a little bit and encourages them to have a bit more freedom of turn in the body when they swing, all right? So that's a very simple change to do first of all. The second thing that I did as well was got them to address the ball, got their foot flare out, all right, and then I asked a couple of them just to drop their right foot back a bit, all right, only a little bit, and there's no right or wrong, okay. So what you should be, and like I say, what is normal, okay, is you've got a ball to target line, and my feet, knees, hips, and shoulders will tend to be square to that line. If you can do that, that's great. But some people need help, all right, and you can always come back to that once you get rid of this problem. But what I asked them to do was just to drop the right foot back just a fraction, so that their toes were either just in line with the middle of the balls of their feet, or more in line with the ball of their foot, or their big joint of their right toe. Okay, it wasn't a big deal. I wasn't like going right back like I normally do. So just a little bit. All right, and they can actually play from this position. All right, and all I asked them to do from here, because what this does is your hips are already open anyway, and this just gives you the freedom of the right hip being able to go back even more, all right? So you're going to encourage you to push your weight, or the pressure of your weight, into the balls of the heel of your foot, rather than moving it to the side of the foot. And it's just because your hips are partially opened already when you do this, because your right foot's gone back, it's just going to be easier. It's almost set the momentum going of the hips going back, if that makes sense, all right? So very, very important, all right? And just doing that little change just encourages them just to be able to turn the hips rather than actually slide the hips during the swing. So I'm just going to turn and turn through, all right? It just encourages a good movement straight away, all right? What I did after that was then set them some homework, all right? And one of the things that I asked them to do was to practice the actual body motion, all right? Now, you can do this a few ways, and one of the ways that I tend to do it is with my arms just across my body, okay? You can either hug yourself, arms across your shoulders, or one I'd quite like at the moment is having your hands just down by your thighs, all right, like so. And all you're going to ask you to do is just to make the turn from the belly, and you're just going to make the turn and just turn back. And what I'm doing here is I'm not allowing my right hip to go sideways, I'm always allowing it to go back behind me. Greg normally used to call it RPB, which is right pocket back. It's as though somebody grabs your right pocket and pulls it back behind you, all right? This was just encourage the right turn. So as I go back, I'm pushing it back, and I can feel the pressure go into my right heel. I can lift my toe off the ground, all right? This keeps me from sliding. You'll notice when I draw a line up here that I don't go anywhere near that line. If anything, I come away from that line, all right? This just means that my pelvis is turning central, all right? I'm not sliding, all right? So that's just a feeling that you can get to do that, all right? And that's what you should be doing. So just allow that right hip to go backwards. I can then move up into my left side and then turn through, all right? And that's just doing that again and again. And repetition is really key on this one, all right? Another thing that I asked them to do, now you could either get a kitchen surface, you can have a kitchen surface, a countertop, anything like that. A chair, you can put a chair to the side of you. You can even, I've used a golf bag here, which is what I've done. I've got my driver to the side here. And all I asked them to do was, once they made their setup, okay, and made their stance and so on, a bit of foot flare to help with the turn, is to make the turn, but to do it so that they don't actually make contact with the driver, okay, or whatever's here. And I'm going to turn inside that, all right? And this is just going to encourage them to stop sliding into it, because you're going to notice straight away, all right? So having something that's going to block here is really key. So what I'm going to do from here is just turn back like so. And you can see how I've not swayed at all into my right hand side or beyond, all right? I've got a good upper body turn, I've got a nice bit of slope to my back here. I'm in a good position. I can feel my weight now moving into the heel of my right foot. All right, I'm then ready to move up into my left side to then push through. All right, just a great little exercise to do there. Once you've done that, and you've done that a few times, and you've got the feeling for it, remember as well, it takes time to make changes. It doesn't just happen instantly. There's nothing that happens instant. You've got to put some grind into it. Once you've got that feeling, then you can start putting it into a swing action. All right, so I'm just going to stand here like so, get my setup correct, foot slightly back. I'm then just going to feel that action of turning back, turn that right hip. You can even have a few practice waggles just to get that feeling. So back and through. All right, that's just going to get the club head just swinging nicely towards the target on the way through. So just simple little things like that can make a big difference to your golf swing, and you'll be surprised at the contact you'll make on it, and the actual distance that you suddenly achieve will be phenomenal. Okay, you'll be very surprised. So instead of going from this slidey action from here and across here, hopefully then you're going to get more around you here to swing through. All right, it's a great way to do it. It's going to be a lot less stressful on your back as well. All right, give it a go and see how you get on. So, thank you very much for joining me on that video. It's freezing here today. It's going to snow tomorrow, just so you know. There's a bit of snow flowing around now, all right? But that was what I call the hip sway, okay? It's a real swing killer. If you don't get that under control, you're just going to struggle throughout your golf game, all right? So get that correct, work on those drills, and I promise you, you will get better, all right? Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please like and subscribe and share it with your friends as well, all right? Also, if you want to have help with your golf swing, I'm available on Skillist. I'm more than happy. You send me swings, I analyse them and send you some tips and drills back, and hopefully we can work together in improving your game. But again, once again, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you at the next one.